By me, Cowboy, the Apache woman's words that changed her fate. The house, like many on the Apache reservation, was modest, made of worn wood and stone, with a roof that had weathered countless storms. The early morning air smelled of dry earth and pine, carrying a quiet stillness that always felt both comforting and heavy. For Maria, each morning was a reminder of the life she had been born into. One filled with struggles, but also with deep roots, stories, and traditions that tied her to the land and her people. Her mother, a strong woman with calloused hands and kind eyes, was already awake, tending to a small fire in the kitchen. The smell of cornmeal cooking mingled with the earthy scent of the soil that clung to their clothes and feet. Maria's younger brother, Manuel, was still asleep on the thin mattress in the corner, his chest rising and falling gently, unaware of the burdens the world outside their home held. Maria quietly dressed in worn clothes, sturdy and simple, knowing the day would demand more than comfort. She had learned early that life on the reservation required resilience. Food was not always plentiful, and opportunities to earn money were rare. Many families depended on seasonal work, odd jobs, or government assistance. Maria's family was no different. Her father, long gone, had left behind debts and responsibilities that weighed heavily on her mother's shoulders. Stepping outside, Maria was greeted by the familiar sight of the desert stretching endlessly around their small home. Red and brown earth, dotted with sagebrush and cacti, reflected the early sunlight in warm hues. The mountains in the distance looked like silent guardians, watching over the land and its people. Maria inhaled deeply, letting the crisp air fill her lungs. She loved this land, though it offered so many challenges. There was a raw beauty here, in the quiet strength of the desert and the resilience of her community, that made her heart swell with pride and longing at the same time. Her routine was simple but demanding. First, she fed the few animals they kept, chickens that scratched at the dirt and a goat that nibbled at the dry grass near the house. Then came chores inside the home, sweeping, cleaning, preparing food for her family. Each task required effort. Yet Maria approached them with a careful precision, understanding that small acts of care could keep their fragile life afloat. By mid-morning, Maria walked to the small community center where she sometimes helped with tasks in exchange for a small stipend. It was here she saw people from the nearby towns and ranches, a glimpse into worlds far different from her own. The locals often stared at her with curiosity, their expressions ranging from polite interest to quiet judgment. Maria had grown used to this. She carried herself with a dignity that was sometimes mistaken for pride, though it was born of necessity, a shield against a world that often saw her heritage as something to be overlooked. One day, as Maria worked outside the center, she noticed a group of visitors arriving at the fairgrounds on the edge of the reservation. Their horses' hooves kicked up dust as they rode in, and their clothes and equipment marked them as ranchers from outside the community. Among them was a tall man with sun-weathered skin, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and boots that had clearly seen hard work. He had an easy confidence, a calm authority that made people take notice without effort. Maria watched him from a distance, curious. She had seen men like him before, some helpful, some dismissive, but something about this one drew her gaze. The man's name, she later learned, was Jake. He moved with a quiet grace, tending to his horse, speaking briefly to the others in his group, yet every gesture seemed purposeful. There was a gentleness in his eyes, though framed by the strength of a man who had lived a life outdoors, under the sun and sky. Maria felt a strange pull toward him, though she could not explain why. She quickly reminded herself to stay out of his way. Curiosity was a luxury she could rarely afford. That evening, back at her family's home, the conversation turned to money, as it often did. Maria's mother spoke in hushed tones with her aunt, fear and worry threading their words. A local lender had threatened to take their home if debts were not repaid soon. Maria listened quietly, her heart tightening with each word. She knew her family had few options. The small jobs she did barely helped, and her mother's health was fragile from years of hard work and little rest. The pressure of the future weighed heavily on her, making her feel trapped. Sleep came fitfully that night, Maria tossing and turning as she thought of ways to help her family. She replayed her brief glimpse of the cowboy earlier in her mind, wondering if someone like him could ever understand what life was like here. She felt both a pang of longing and a wave of frustration. Her dreams were not of wealth or luxury. They were simple: security for her family, respect for her people, and a chance to make choices for herself. But each day seemed to narrow the possibilities. The following morning, Maria helped her mother gather water from the well, their movements in quiet rhythm. As she worked, she noticed the dust clouds rising in the distance, the same group of ranchers approaching the reservation again. This time, Jake dismounted and walked closer to the community center. Their eyes met briefly, and Maria felt a jolt of recognition. She turned her gaze away quickly, feeling a mix of curiosity and caution. The world outside the reservation had always been intimidating, but there was something about Jake that seemed different. By noon, Jake had been speaking with community elders, discussing ways to provide work and support. Maria's heart pounded as she realized that he might be offering more than casual help. He was looking for someone who could assist him on his ranch. The elders spoke of the opportunity cautiously, aware that outsiders often had their own agendas. Maria listened quietly, a mixture of hope and fear stirring inside her. Her mother noticed her interest and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Careful, Maria," she said softly. "Not everyone comes with kindness in their hearts. But if you think this could help, you must also think of what you are willing to do." Her words were gentle, yet filled with the weight of reality. Maria nodded, understanding that life was about choices, some of which carried risks that could not be ignored. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, Maria walked home, her mind alive with questions. Could she step into a world so different from her own? Could she trust someone like Jake? And most importantly, could she find a way to help her family without losing herself? The desert seemed to stretch endlessly before her, reflecting the uncertainty of the path ahead. But beneath her fear, a quiet determination began to take root. She would not allow circumstance alone to define her. That night Maria lay awake, listening to the sounds of her family settling into sleep. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a sense of possibility. She realized that her life, though constrained by the hardships of the reservation, was hers to navigate. And for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself a flicker of hope that courage, intelligence, and a little daring might open doors she never imagined. The next morning would bring choices that could change everything. Maria did not know what the future held, but she knew that she would face it with the same determination that had carried her this far. And somewhere in the distance, she felt the presence of the cowboy, Jake, whose path had unknowingly begun to intertwine with hers. A connection, fragile yet undeniable, had formed. It was a spark that might ignite something that could alter her fate forever. Maria's story, she realized, was not yet written. And she was determined to write it on her own terms, even if the world outside seemed uncertain, daunting, and full of challenges she could barely imagine. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but so was the strength of her spirit. And with that thought, she drifted into sleep, the soft desert night surrounding her with both comfort and promise. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the desert, painting the red earth and mountains in golden hues. Maria woke early, her mind restless with thoughts about the previous day. The fair had left her with a mixture of curiosity and unease. She had glimpsed Jake again, the cowboy whose calm strength and quiet presence seemed almost magnetic. He had been speaking to her community's elders, offering help in ways that sounded practical, honest, and surprisingly respectful. Still, Maria could not shake a sense of caution. Outsiders rarely came to the reservation with pure intentions, and she knew better than to trust blindly. Her mother had noticed Maria's restlessness and tried to ease it with small talk over breakfast. The smell of coffee and warm bread filled their tiny home, but Maria barely tasted it. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Jake and the possibilities he represented. The family debt weighed heavily on her mind, an invisible chain pulling at her every decision. She loved her home and her people, but survival sometimes required bold steps. By mid-morning, she returned to the community center to help with chores. Today, there was an added sense of anticipation in the air. People whispered quietly, glancing toward the edge of the reservation where the riders had parked their horses. Maria felt her heart quicken. She had a sense that something significant was about to happen, though she could not yet say what. Jake approached the center slowly, his hat pulled low against the sun. His eyes met Maria's for a brief moment, and she felt a strange mixture of nerves and curiosity. He nodded politely, a simple gesture that carried both respect and acknowledgement. When he spoke to the elders, his voice was steady, calm, and easy to understand. He explained that he needed help on his ranch, a place where work was constant, physical, and demanding. In exchange, he offered support that could help families like Maria's pay debts and improve their lives. The elders listened carefully, asking questions about what the work would involve, what kind of support he could provide, and whether Maria or someone else from the community would be willing to take up the offer. The discussion was cautious but serious. Maria's heart beat faster with each passing moment. This could be the opportunity her family desperately needed. When the conversation turned to her, Maria's mother looked at her with a mixture of worry and hope. "Maria," she said softly, "you know what this means. If you go, it could help all of us, but you must be careful. Make sure you understand what you are agreeing to." Her words carried the weight of a mother who had faced hardships herself, but who wanted her daughter to have choices that were safe and fair. Maria felt a sudden surge of determination. She had grown up learning to face challenges head-on, to adapt, and to think clearly even when fear and uncertainty tried to cloud her mind. She knew that survival often required bold decisions. And so, with a steady voice, she said something that stunned everyone. "Buy me, Cowboy." The words hung in the air for a moment, echoing louder than Maria expected. Her mother gasped softly, the elders looked at each other in surprise, and even Jake raised an eyebrow. But there was no anger in Maria's tone. She was not pleading, nor was she asking for mercy. She was making a choice, a clear, bold statement of agency and courage. She understood the risks, and she was taking control of her own fate. Jake's expression softened, and a faint smile crossed his face. There was a sense of respect in his eyes, a recognition that Maria was not someone to be treated lightly or patronized. He nodded slowly and said, "If that is your choice, then I will honor it. We will make sure you have the chance to work and learn, and you will have a say in how things go." His words reassured Maria. He did not seek to control her. He offered partnership, guidance, and opportunity, not dominance. That afternoon, preparations began. Maria helped her family pack essentials for her journey, small items of clothing, blankets, and a few personal belongings. Her younger brother, Manuel, watched silently, a mixture of pride and worry in his eyes. Her mother held her tightly, whispering prayers for her safety and strength. Maria felt a lump in her throat, but she stayed composed. This was her choice, her chance to change her family's future. The journey to Jake's ranch was long and challenging. Maria rode on a dusty wagon with supplies, the wind whipping against her face and the desert stretching endlessly around her. She watched the landscape change from the red plains of the reservation to the rolling green fields that led to the ranch. The vastness of the world outside her home was overwhelming, but she also felt a sense of excitement. For the first time, she was stepping into a life that she could shape herself, even if it was unfamiliar and demanding. When they arrived at the ranch, Maria was struck by the sheer scale of it. The land seemed endless, dotted with horses, cattle, and barns that had been standing for decades. The air smelled of hay, animals, and fresh earth. Jake greeted her with a firm handshake and a friendly smile, introducing her to the ranch hands, each of whom looked her over carefully but respectfully. She could sense the difference immediately. The men here were strong, hardworking, and practical, but they also seemed to value skill and effort above all else. The first days on the ranch were exhausting. Maria woke before sunrise, helped with feeding the animals, repairing fences, and managing the daily chores that kept the ranch running. Her muscles ached in ways they never had before, and she struggled to keep up with the pace. Yet with each task completed, she felt a growing sense of accomplishment. She realized that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. The work was hard, but it was honest, and it demanded focus, resilience, and determination, qualities she had in abundance. Jake observed her quietly, offering guidance when necessary but never imposing his will. He seemed to understand that Maria needed to learn, adapt, and grow on her own terms. Slowly, a mutual respect began to develop between them. Maria admired Jake's skill and calm authority, while Jake recognized her intelligence, resourcefulness, and courage. Though they came from different worlds, a subtle connection began to form, built on respect, effort, and shared understanding. Yet life on the ranch was not without challenges. Some neighboring ranchers and locals were skeptical of Maria's presence. They whispered among themselves, questioning why an Apache woman would work on a ranch and doubting her ability to adapt. Maria heard their remarks, but she refused to let them deter her. She worked harder, proved her skills, and gradually earned the respect of those who had doubted her. Each day, she learned more about horses, cattle, and the rhythm of ranch life. She learned to ride, mend fences, and navigate the vast property with confidence. At night, Maria often sat quietly by the barn, watching the stars glitter above the desert and fields. The work was physically draining, but these moments gave her time to reflect. She thought about her family, the sacrifices they had made, and the opportunities that now lay before her. She felt pride in her strength, courage, and ability to face a new life. For the first time, she began to believe that she could shape her destiny. One evening, a small crisis brought Maria and Jake closer. A young foal had wandered too close to the edge of a steep ravine, and Maria noticed it before anyone else. Without hesitation, she ran toward it, guiding it carefully away from danger. Jake arrived moments later to help, and together they managed to lead the foal back to safety. In those tense moments, Maria saw Jake's reliance on her abilities and his trust in her judgment. It was a turning point, a subtle but powerful reminder that she was capable, respected, and needed. As the weeks passed, Maria's confidence grew. She began to take initiative, helping with tasks that even some of the more experienced ranch hands found challenging. She learned to anticipate needs, understand the land, and work in harmony with both animals and people. Her connection with Jake deepened, not through words alone, but through shared effort, trust, and understanding. She realized that this life, though vastly different from the reservation, offered her opportunities she had never imagined. Still, Maria never forgot why she had come. Every action, every effort was a step toward securing her family's future. The thought of them and the desire to provide a better life pushed her through the hardest days. She carried her family's hopes with her, even as she learned to navigate the new challenges of this unfamiliar world. By the end of her first month on the ranch, Maria had changed in ways she could feel in her bones. Her body was stronger, her mind sharper, and her spirit more determined. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and physical exhaustion, and emerged stronger for it. She had earned the respect of those around her, including Jake, who had become not just a guide but a quiet support in her journey. For Maria, the words she had spoken, "By me, Cowboy," were no longer just a declaration of survival. They were the start of a journey toward independence, courage, and self-determination. She had stepped into a world unknown, faced its challenges head-on, and begun to carve a path that was uniquely hers. And though the future remained uncertain, Maria knew one thing with absolute clarity. She was no longer a passive observer of her fate. She had taken control, and she would continue to shape her life, one deliberate, brave step at a time. Life on the ranch had become Maria's new normal, but it was far from easy. Each day brought a fresh set of challenges, some physical, some emotional, and she quickly realized that surviving here required not just strength, but patience, intelligence, and courage. The sun rose early, casting long shadows across the fields, and Maria found herself waking before dawn out of habit and determination. The work never truly stopped. Feeding the animals, checking fences, tending to the crops, and assisting with repairs demanded long hours, but she began to notice a sense of rhythm, almost like a dance between humans and nature. Maria had learned quickly that ranch life was not just about hard labor. It was about understanding the land, reading the animals, and anticipating problems before they happened. One morning, while checking the cattle grazing near a steep incline, she noticed a few straying calves heading toward a rocky patch. Without hesitation, she moved quickly to guide them back. Her hands were raw, her arms aching, but the satisfaction of seeing the calves safe made every ache worth it. Jake watched her from a distance, leaning against the fence post. He had noticed her determination from the very first day, but now it was clear that Maria was not someone who could be discouraged by hard work or difficult circumstances. He admired the way she handled challenges, calmly, intelligently, and with a quiet confidence that earned her respect from the other ranch hands. The workers on the ranch, initially skeptical of Maria, began to change their opinions. Some whispered about her behind her back, questioning whether an Apache woman could handle the rough life of a cowboy, but she proved herself day after day. She lifted heavy bales of hay, repaired broken fences, and learned to ride horses that were unruly or nervous. Slowly, respect replaced doubt. By the end of her first few weeks, the ranch hands greeted her with nods and words of encouragement. Maria realized that her presence had begun to feel natural on the ranch, and she took pride in knowing she had earned it. Despite her growing confidence, there were moments when she felt out of place. The world outside the reservation was different, full of customs and attitudes she did not always understand. Some neighboring ranchers eyed her suspiciously, and occasionally she heard whispers questioning why a woman, and an Apache woman at that, would be working here. It stung, but Maria refused to let it shake her. She had faced prejudice before, and she knew that proving herself required persistence rather than confrontation. Every successful task, every moment of courage, was her answer to those doubts. Jake, always observant, noticed how Maria handled herself. He did not interfere unless necessary, but his guidance was subtle and invaluable. He taught her to read the subtle signs of the land, the way cattle moved, the hints in the wind that predicted weather, the small behaviors of horses that indicated stress or fear. Maria absorbed every lesson with eagerness. She discovered that Jake was not only a man of action, but also of thoughtfulness, someone who respected her ability to learn and adapt rather than imposing authority over her. One afternoon, as Maria worked near the barn, a sudden storm rolled in from the mountains. Dark clouds covered the sky, and a strong wind whipped the dust and hay into swirling clouds. Cattle began to panic, and a young foal ran toward the edge of a hill, its hooves slipping on loose soil. Maria's heart leapt as she ran toward it, shouting to calm the animal. The wind tore at her clothes and hair, and her arms ached from holding the foal's small body steady as she guided it back to safety. Jake arrived moments later, helping her steady the animal and checking for injuries. In that tense moment, he looked at Maria with a mix of admiration and relief. "You handled that perfectly," he said. "Most people would have panicked. You stayed calm and you saved it." Maria felt a surge of pride. She realized that moments like these were shaping her in ways she had never expected. It was not just the physical work. It was learning to trust herself, to act decisively, and to take responsibility in situations that demanded courage. Evenings were quieter, but they offered their own lessons. Maria would often sit on the porch of the ranch house, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to deep violet. She reflected on her life, the struggles of her past, the hardships her family faced, and the steps she had taken to claim a better future. She thought of her mother and younger brother, imagining them safe and hopeful back at the reservation. Every accomplishment on the ranch felt like a gift to them as well. During these quiet times, her connection with Jake grew. They spoke about many things: the land, their childhoods, the stories of their families. Maria shared her experiences growing up on the reservation, the challenges her family faced, and the pride she felt in her heritage. Jake listened carefully, genuinely interested, and he spoke of his life as a rancher, the struggles of keeping a large property running, and the importance of trust and integrity. Their conversations, simple yet profound, built a foundation of respect and understanding that went beyond words. Maria also began to notice the small ways in which life on the ranch mirrored lessons from her childhood. Caring for the animals reminded her of tending the goats and chickens at home. The discipline required for chores and riding echoed the responsibility she had learned from her mother. Each day felt like a bridge between two worlds, the one she had known and the one she was learning to inhabit. But life on the ranch was not without its moments of fear. One evening, as she returned from helping with the evening feeding, she encountered a rattlesnake near the edge of the barn. Instinctively, she froze, remembering the stories of danger from her childhood. But instead of panicking, she recalled Jake's teachings: how to move slowly, how to read the signs, and how to protect herself. Carefully, she guided the snake away with a long stick until it slithered back into the wild. When Jake arrived, he smiled. "See, you're learning fast. You're paying attention and you're thinking. That's what makes you strong." Maria felt her confidence swell. She was not just surviving, she was thriving, adapting, and mastering skills that would have once seemed impossible. Throughout the weeks, Maria began to take initiative, noticing small improvements that could make life on the ranch easier. She repaired a gate that had been leaking water onto the pasture, rearranged feed storage for efficiency, and even suggested new ways to manage the cattle rotation. The ranch hands noticed her efforts, and slowly they began to treat her not just as a newcomer but as a valued member of the team. Jake continued to mentor her, but always with a light touch. He knew that for Maria to truly grow, she had to face challenges herself, to learn from mistakes, and to gain confidence in her abilities. Their trust in each other became unspoken, a quiet understanding that they were partners in their work, even if their relationship was not defined by words. One day, Maria was asked to help with a particularly difficult task, guiding a stubborn horse that had been injured during a previous roundup. Many ranch hands had tried and failed, growing frustrated and impatient. Maria approached the horse calmly, speaking in gentle tones and moving with patience rather than force. Slowly, carefully, she led the horse to a quiet area, tending to its wounds with skill and care. When she finished, Jake approached, a look of approval on his face. "You have a gift for understanding them," he said. "It's not just strength, it's patience, intuition, and respect. You've learned more in a month than some take a year to understand." Maria smiled quietly, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. She realized that the work she was doing was not just about survival or earning money. It was about discovering her own strength, courage, and intelligence. She was building a life for herself, one that honored her heritage while embracing new opportunities. As the days turned into weeks, the ranch became a place of growth and transformation. Maria's muscles grew stronger, her skills sharper, and her confidence unshakable. She had faced fear, prejudice, and exhaustion, and emerged stronger each time. The connection between her and Jake deepened, built not on words alone but on shared effort, mutual respect, and understanding. Maria also began to see herself in a new light. The shy, uncertain girl who had left the reservation was no longer the same person. She was strong, capable, and resilient. She had earned the respect of those around her and discovered a courage she had never fully realized. Most importantly, she had taken control of her life, making decisions that shaped her own destiny rather than allowing circumstance to dictate it. By the end of the third month, Maria stood in the field one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and orange. She felt a quiet pride and a deep sense of purpose. The ranch, the work, and even the challenges she had faced had all contributed to her growth. And though the future remained uncertain, Maria knew she was ready to face whatever came next, with courage, wisdom, and determination. The ranch had become a second home for Maria, a place where each day challenged her body and mind while shaping her spirit. By now, she had mastered many of the tasks that had seemed impossible at first: riding difficult horses, repairing fences, managing the cattle rotation, and even handling emergencies with quick thinking and confidence. Yet despite her growing skill and independence, a new challenge began to stir within her, a question she had not fully faced before. What did she truly want for herself? Maria had come to the ranch to help her family, to contribute, and to make a life that was more secure than the one she had left behind. But as weeks turned into months, she began to notice a change within herself. She enjoyed the work, the freedom of the open land, and the sense of accomplishment that came from overcoming challenges. She felt pride in her strength and resilience, and for the first time, she realized that life could offer more than mere survival. It could offer choice. One morning, as the first light of dawn kissed the horizon, Maria stood by the corral, brushing a horse she had grown particularly fond of. The rhythmic motion of her hand against the horse's coat was calming, but her mind was restless. Jake approached quietly, carrying a small bucket of feed. "You seem thoughtful this morning," he said, a gentle smile on his face. Maria paused, unsure how much to reveal. "I've been thinking about what comes next," she said finally. "About my future, not just helping here, but what I want for myself." Jake nodded, leaning against the fence. "It's a good question," he said, "and it's not always easy to answer, but it's important. You've done a lot here, learned a lot. That doesn't mean you have to stop growing." His words were encouraging, but they also carried a challenge. Maria realized that he expected her to think for herself, to make decisions that were truly hers. The opportunity came sooner than she expected. One afternoon, a representative from a vocational program visited the ranch. They were offering training for young women and men interested in entrepreneurship, animal care, and sustainable agriculture. Maria listened carefully as the representative explained the courses and potential career paths. Her heart raced. This was a chance to build a life that was independent, meaningful, and tied to both her heritage and the skills she had learned on the ranch. But Maria's mind was conflicted. Accepting this opportunity would mean leaving the immediate support and familiarity of Jake's ranch. It would also mean stepping into a world she knew little about, full of new challenges and uncertainties. And yet, the thought of gaining knowledge and independence filled her with excitement and hope. She realized that this was the kind of choice she had dreamed about, the kind of step that could transform her life. That evening, Maria sat quietly under the wide, star-studded sky, reflecting on her journey. The wind whispered through the tall grass, carrying the familiar sense of the ranch she had come to love. She thought of her mother and younger brother, of the family she had left behind, and of the responsibility she carried for their well-being. She thought of the strength she had discovered within herself, the courage to step into the unknown, the determination to prove her worth, and the ability to navigate challenges with intelligence and resilience. Jake found her there, sitting on a rock with her knees pulled close. He didn't interrupt at first, simply observing the quiet determination on her face. Finally, he spoke softly. "You've grown in ways I knew you could, but also in ways I didn't expect. You've faced fears, learned skills, and proven yourself. Now it's time to think about what you want. Not what anyone else wants, not what the ranch needs, but you." Maria took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of fear and resolve. "I don't want to leave," she admitted. "I love the work here and I've come to care about this place. But I also want to grow, to learn, to be able to stand on my own. I want to make choices that aren't just about survival, they're about life, about becoming the person I'm meant to be." Jake nodded slowly, respect evident in his expression. "Then that's what you should do," he said. "Whatever you choose, you'll have my support. You don't have to prove anything to me. You only have to follow your heart." The decision weighed heavily on Maria over the next few days. She discussed it with her mother in long, careful conversations over the phone. Her mother encouraged her to pursue the opportunity, reminding her that courage and intelligence would always guide her. Maria also spoke quietly with the ranch hands, who expressed admiration for her dedication and reassured her that she had earned their respect and support, no matter what path she chose. Finally, one morning, Maria made her choice. She would accept the vocational program, stepping into a world of knowledge, growth, and independence. She would continue to help her family, but on her terms. And most importantly, she would embrace the chance to define her own life, rather than letting circumstances dictate it. When she told Jake, he smiled warmly. "I'm proud of you," he said simply. "You've shown strength, courage, and wisdom. You're ready for this. And remember, the ranch is always a place you can return to if you need it. This is not goodbye, it's a step forward." The next few days were filled with preparations. Maria packed carefully, choosing items that were both practical and meaningful. She wrote letters for her family, promising to return often and share her experiences. Each item she packed felt like a symbol of her journey: the clothing and tools for work, small mementos from her family, and the notebook in which she had recorded her thoughts, lessons, and dreams. The morning she left, Maria walked to the ranch gate one last time. She looked across the fields, feeling the familiar wind and sun on her face. The barn, the pastures, and the hills all seemed to glow in the morning light. Jake met her at the gate, offering a reassuring smile. "You're ready," he said. "I know you'll do great things. And remember, you've already proven how strong you are. Now it's time to take that strength into the world." Maria nodded, a lump in her throat. She hugged Jake briefly, feeling gratitude for his guidance, trust, and support. She realized that their connection had become something more than just mentor and helper. It was built on mutual respect, understanding, and shared effort. She would always carry the lessons she had learned from him and the ranch with her. As she rode away, Maria felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The path ahead was unknown, full of challenges and opportunities. But for the first time, she felt in control of her own fate. She had learned to trust herself, to face fear with courage, and to make choices that were truly her own. Each mile she traveled away from the ranch felt like a step toward the life she had dreamed of, a life defined by her own decisions, her own courage, and her own vision. During the journey to the program, Maria reflected on the past months. She remembered the first day she had arrived, the fear, the uncertainty, and the questions she had faced. She recalled the long hours of work, the bruises, the moments of doubt, and the victories, both big and small. She remembered guiding the foal to safety during the storm, taming difficult horses, and proving herself to the skeptical ranch hands. Each memory was a reminder of how far she had come, and how capable she truly was. Arriving at the program, Maria was greeted by a new world of learning, filled with young people from different backgrounds. She felt both nervous and excited as she stepped into classrooms, workshops, and practical training sessions. Each lesson was a challenge, but Maria faced them with the same determination and courage she had shown on the ranch. She learned new skills in animal care, business management, and problem-solving, expanding her abilities and confidence. Even in this new environment, Maria carried the lessons from the ranch with her. She approached every challenge with patience, intelligence, and a calm determination. She listened carefully, observed keenly, and acted decisively. Her reputation for hard work and skill soon spread, earning her the respect of instructors and peers alike. At night, she would sit under the stars, thinking of her family, the ranch, and Jake. She realized that her journey was not just about learning practical skills. It was about understanding herself, discovering her inner strength, and embracing the power of choice. She was no longer defined solely by circumstance or tradition. She was creating her own path, one that balanced respect for her heritage with the opportunities of the world beyond. Maria also began to think about what she truly wanted in life. The work on the ranch had taught her resilience, patience, and courage. The program offered knowledge, independence, and opportunity. She realized that she could combine both worlds, honoring her roots while building a future she controlled. Each day she became more certain that her destiny was hers to shape, and that no obstacle could prevent her from achieving it. And though the road ahead remained uncertain, Maria felt ready. She had faced fear, embraced challenge, and proven her strength. She had learned to trust herself and to make decisions guided by courage, wisdom, and heart. The journey she had begun with the words, "By me, Cowboy," had transformed into a journey of self-discovery, independence, and hope. A journey that was far from over, but one she would walk with confidence, determination, and pride. Months passed as Maria immersed herself in the vocational program. Each day brought new lessons, practical exercises, and challenges that tested her patience and skill. From managing small business projects to advanced animal care techniques, she absorbed every bit of knowledge with determination. The world she had entered was different from both the reservation and the ranch, yet it offered something she had longed for, a chance to grow, to lead, and to carve her own path. Despite the busy days, Maria never forgot why she had started this journey. She wrote letters to her mother and brother, describing the lessons she had learned and the people she had met. She often thought about the ranch, Jake, and the life she had built there over the past months. Though she had left physically, the skills and confidence she had gained on the ranch traveled with her. They reminded her that strength was not only about physical effort, it was about courage, perseverance, and the choices one makes. One afternoon, during a workshop on sustainable agriculture, Maria received an unexpected visit. Jake had come to check on her progress, riding his horse across the open fields that separated him from the program center. When he arrived, Maria felt a wave of comfort and reassurance. Seeing him reminded her of the foundation of trust, guidance, and mutual respect they had built together. "You've grown," Jake said simply, observing her as she explained a project she had been working on. "Not just in skill, but in confidence. You're ready for whatever comes next." Maria smiled, a mixture of gratitude and pride filling her heart. "I wouldn't have gotten this far without the ranch and everything you taught me," she said. "You showed me how to face challenges, trust myself, and work hard. I've learned so much, and now I feel like I can finally make choices for myself." Jake nodded, understanding her completely. "And that's all I ever wanted for you, to find your strength and use it to shape your life. The ranch will always be here, but your journey is yours. You've earned the right to write your own story." With Jake's encouragement, Maria focused on her ultimate goal, creating a life that honored her Apache heritage while embracing the new skills she had learned. She decided to start a small business that would combine sustainable farming practices with traditional crafts from her community. It was a bold step, but one that felt entirely natural. She wanted to bridge the world she had inhabited, the reservation and the ranch, the past and the future, and provide opportunities for her family and others like her. Back on the reservation, her family welcomed her with pride and admiration. Her mother, who had watched Maria grow from a determined young girl into a strong, independent woman, embraced her tightly. "You've made us proud," she whispered. "You've not only changed your life, but you've changed ours too." Maria's business became a symbol of her journey. She worked tirelessly to integrate lessons from the ranch, animal care, land management, and work ethic with the traditions of her people. Her products and services reflected a respect for the land, sustainability, and cultural heritage. Slowly, her reputation grew, earning recognition from neighboring communities and local markets. Her courage to take bold steps, her dedication, and her skill created a life she could be proud of, a life she had chosen for herself. Through it all, Jake remained a steady presence. He visited the business regularly, offering advice and support when needed, but always respecting Maria's independence. Their relationship had evolved from one of mentor and helper to a deep bond of trust, friendship, and shared respect. They had learned to rely on each other without compromising autonomy, and this balance became a cornerstone of their connection. One day, as the sun set over the rolling hills near the reservation, Maria stood at the edge of her small farm, looking out over the fields she had nurtured and the animals she had cared for. Jake joined her silently, handing her a cup of water as they watched the sky change colors. Maria reflected on how far she had come, from the dusty roads of her childhood to the ranch, and now to a life she had built with her own hands. "You did it," Jake said softly. "You've taken everything you've learned and created something meaningful. You've changed your world." Maria smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. "I didn't do it alone," she said. "I had guidance, yes, but every choice was mine. Every step, every challenge, every moment of courage, that was me. I finally understand that I can shape my own life." Her family, who had once feared for their survival, now looked to her with hope and admiration. Her younger brother, Manuel, watched her with wide eyes, inspired by her courage and determination. Maria had become a role model, not just for her family but for her community. Her journey showed that strength, intelligence, and perseverance could overcome hardship, and that self-determination could change a life forever. The phrase that had started it all, "Buy me, cowboy," no longer carried the same meaning. It had once been a declaration of survival, a desperate act to help her family in a time of need. Now, it symbolized courage, independence, and the power to choose one's destiny. Maria had stepped into the unknown, faced fear, and emerged stronger, wiser, and free. In the quiet of the evening, as the stars began to twinkle above, Maria felt gratitude for the path she had taken. She had learned the value of hard work, the importance of trust and guidance, and the necessity of making choices that reflected her own goals and values. Her life was not defined by circumstance, but by the courage to embrace opportunity, the wisdom to learn from experience, and the strength to stand tall in the face of challenge. As she stood there with Jake by her side, Maria understood that her journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, new opportunities, and moments of uncertainty, but she was ready. She had discovered her inner strength, her capacity to learn and adapt, and her ability to shape her own life. Every decision she had made, every risk she had taken had brought her to this moment of empowerment and pride. And so, as the desert wind carried the scent of sagebrush and the warmth of the setting sun bathed the land, Maria smiled. She had rewritten her fate, blending the lessons of her past with the opportunities of her present to create a future that was uniquely hers. The young Apache woman who had once spoken words of survival, "Buy me, cowboy," had grown into a woman of courage, independence, and vision. She had taken control of her destiny, honored her heritage, and embraced the possibilities that life offered. Maria's story became a testament to the power of choice, resilience, and determination. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and the unknown, and emerged stronger than she had ever imagined. Her journey showed that courage was not just about survival. It was about embracing opportunity, learning from every experience, and taking responsibility for one's own life. As night fell over the desert, Maria looked out over the land she had nurtured, the animals she had cared for, and the people whose lives she had touched. She knew that her journey would continue, but she was no longer afraid. She was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the lessons of her past, the skills she had gained, and the unwavering belief in her own strength. The path she had chosen, the path of courage, independence, and self-determination, was hers to walk. And for Maria, that was the greatest gift of all.